Let me tell you what makes Sigil Magic juice worth the squeeze. It is the best way I have found for shining a gap in the magical reality that we don't actually get what we want. We get what we believe we deserve. With Sigil Magic, you have so many opportunities, whether you want them or not, to encounter and do something about that gap. So in this video, the last of my ultimate Sigil Magic course, I want to run you through some learnings, what to do, how to live in a cosmos where Sigil Magic actually works, because it has powerful implications for the pursuit of meaning and contribution and co-creation. What happens once you've done that, once you've stepped into, oh wow, this stuff kind of works, now I have to live in a cosmos where magic is real, is that you actually do start to reformulate, oh, what is it I want? How am I getting in the way of that from a level of deserving? And oh wow, so like my thoughts and sacred desires have some sort of material impact. What are my responsibilities, and as Donna Haraway would say, response-abilities in that context? So this one's going to hit different, a bit more casual. It's like it's like the last day of school. So I've made some notes of just different areas that come up when you move into a world where Sigil Magic works. And also how those areas can make Sigil Magic work better, which makes that experience of the cosmos taste better, and so on in this really quite powerful loop. We're going to look at operating inside sacred time. We're going to look at gratitude, how to bring that online as a force multiplier, even if it's something you struggle with, almost especially if it's something you struggle with. And first, we're going to talk about, actually one of my favorite things, failure. The internet in particular has given us a cliche that happens to be true, like a lot of cliches when it comes to failure, that hustle bro idea that you don't actually fail unless you stop, right? So in theory, you will pursue your goal until either you die, in which case you're playing another game back home, or you win, right? So failure is the state of stopping. Okay. True as that is, there's a magic adjacent frame on that, which I think is very useful. And you need one way or the other. You can take the Hustle Bro one, you can have this modified magic one. You need a metaphysics of failure if you're going to be doing practical enchantment, because it's built into it, okay? A lot of it, I think, is in that gap between what we want and what we deserve. But regardless, magic is a beautiful, glorious, organic, analog, imprecise pastime. So what do you do when things don't work? How do you frame that so that you are heading in the right direction? In my shamanic healing lineage, we have a medicine in the north. Dr. Alberto Violdo calls this seeing only opportunities. And I love this. It's not bypassing. So for instance, you might have the sudden ending of a 20-year marriage. So how is that seeing only opportunities? Well, the bypassing would be to focus only on, oh, I now have the opportunity to discover more about myself as an individual person on my own. I have the opportunity and invitation to find other people with whom to share the next phase of my journey. That's true, like we get that. Why it's not bypassing is the other opportunities that are available to you is, oh, I now have the opportunity to experience grief and heartbreak and shock and sadness. Seeing only opportunities is a turnaround moment of what is the cosmos asking of me from a transformational or even just presencing perspective at that point. That's the magical version of you only fail if you stop. And I have a whole video about this, which I will link up below. But essentially, you step into the story that you are being paused until you become the person that your dream outcome happens to. So if you use marriage as an example, let's say you were certain you were going to get a particular job, and you're down to the final interview and you didn't get it. All kinds of magic was behind it. Good card reading, okay, all right. What the hell's this about? Well, there are at least two opportunities or realities to presence there. You don't yet have the skills to do that job, in which case there's a bunch of sigil targets for you. Or you're not good at interviews, or both, or not sufficiently good at interviews. More sigil targets. More opportunities you have been paused to transform into the person that your outcome happens to. It's a wider and more invitational way of saying you only fail if you stop, because that's got more of that like locomotive moving forward. It doesn't allow for the presencing of grief and disappointment and, if you have a surprise ending of a 20-year marriage, there's a bunch of opportunities right in front. I don't know how to do things, right? It's especially long-term relationships. I listened to a podcast, one of my favorites, This Jungian Life, about divorce a couple of years ago. And one of them, I think Joseph, was talking about clients who just had the ending of a marriage where, and it was the husband, he said, I've never bought toilet paper before. I don't know what to buy. I don't know what is good. I've never done that. And the wife in that situation is like, I don't know how to book a holiday. I don't know like what it means to decide where would I like to go. And it's not because they're incompetent. I mean, you know, these are grown-ass adults that have managed a marriage at least for 20 years, right? It's, I have not had the opportunity to presence that adventure, that transformation. So how would I know how to do it? That's less of the locomotive, you only fail if you stop, and more the horizontal, okay, what is mine to do? That's a very Rune Soup thing to say. What are the opportunities in this moment for further enchantment, for further exploration? So that's my metaphysics of failure that I'm going to share with you in a sigil magic context. It happens to be my metaphysics of failure in general, right? But in a sigil magic context, it's where you open up the next round of targets when you've got sort of in the direction of your goal, but didn't land it, yeah? And this for me, this was my, funnily enough, the job hunting one is a live example because as I mentioned earlier in the course, my method of sigil magic was developed in London when I kept getting made redundant because it's media, it's what happens. And so I was forever job hunting. And there was a whole bunch of things I was sure I would get and did and didn't, and this is how shoaling developed and so on. So this is a live example for me. And once you cycle through that 3 or 4 times in different scenarios, it becomes second nature. So this is more of that, how do you live in a world where sigil magic works? Well, you move into that medicine of seeing only opportunities. You move into, what am I being called to change in presence in this moment? And how do I apply myself and my magic and so on to that? And the next, which follows on neatly, is sacred time. And one ayahuasca trip, as in visit. This was in the Andes, in Ecuador. I was doing a lot of work with her about time and working outside of time, because shamans work outside of time and so on. And you get to a level of reality. We have this in the Timaeus and in Platonic philosophy, so we have a version of it in the West, where everything's fine because the cosmos is sacred and everything's God and whatever. And so everything unfolds in its perfect moment, which is all kind of like the one moment because it's just this one being, right? And it's such a wonderful feeling. You're like, oh, I get this. I understand this completely. And then you come back down into waking reality and I'm like, man, I only know it intellectually now. And it reminds me almost of if you pull something up from an ancient shipwreck, some metallic thing or even wooden thing, the second it's exposed out of the water into the air, it'll disintegrate. There's a dimensional understanding of time there where when you are in that sacred moment, it's all unfolding. And it begs the question then of, well, what do I need magic for? If things are just going to unfold as they're supposed to be. This is a philosophical question that people have been tangling with for millennia. And the answer is some form of co-creation, which is when you are up there experiencing oneness, there's less of you and more of it. And so that's what it looks like. But when you're down here, this is that story of like God using your hands to tie up the horses at night. You are in that process of co-creation. So it's still all the one thing, only doing one thing. But when your awareness is back down here in this game, right? That's where, if you didn't do it, this is that plot twist, then it wouldn't unfold. So failure and a metaphysics of failure leads into sacred time. So what are we to do with it then? This is the same reality or realization that comes with having magic work. And what's so entertaining about magic working is that it works dickishly. Like, you will, when you get what you want, when what you want and deserve match and you get what you want, it will be comical. So one example I had is, it's not sigil magic, but a deal with the devil, literally, like some grimoire work, to get the shares in a company that I was working for in London to vest. Because if that had gone the way I was promised, I would be Iggy rich. Like, there would have been several million pounds out of that. So I did a lot of work and a lot of spirit pacting work to make sure that my shares vested. What I didn't do was specify a specific amount. And because it was owned by private equity, they got some dodgy accountants in when they were getting rid of everyone, including me, to value the company at about 4% of what it was actually valued at. So my shares vested. And I got £800, a bit more. I think it was about £1,100 as opposed to the 2 million that it was supposed to be. That's on me. Not that I'll be in that situation again, but I won't make that mistake again. This is sacred time. This is of course it shows up exactly this way in this kind of moment. Sigil magic, or any form of enchantment, gives you more encounters with that sense of humor, that, oh, I know I did this. I didn't do it right. That's all I can tell you is it's sacred time. Now, what do you do with sacred time then? Well, you play with it, and you begin to learn the language of the rhythms of sacred time. And the best way to do that from a Western magical perspective is essentially, you might as well call it folk astrology, which is to use the planetary hours and days governance. In the first version of this course, which was many years ago for premium members only, we actually started with planetary days and hours and allocating specific combinations of, well, I want like a Saturn hour on a Venus day for this, right? And it was potentially too precise and restrictive to encapsulate the organic analog nature of working with a folk astrology. Now, many of you watching this will be actual astrologers, right? So you can elect for magical ceremonies all you want. When it comes to days and hours, allow that to be more lyrical and a little bit more poetic. You might even notice you can get apps on your watch or phone or what have you that will tell you for where you are in the world when the planetary hours kick over. You may even find that you have like a spontaneous encounter or lesson or knowing or upwelling desire to offer up a prayer. That's working in sacred time. Now, can you, as you move forward with Sigil Magic, go, all right, this works, what are some ways to make it work better? Can you then start allocating planetary hour and day governance? Yes, you absolutely can. We have a whole time magic course in the membership for a start. And does it provide a bit of a force multiplier? I believe so. But what I can't tell you is whether that force multiplier, when it comes to folk astrology, comes from the actual energetics of a Saturn hour on a Venus day or whatever, or if it comes from you being more comfortable and thus less in your own way with the notion of sacred time and almost like the confidence that it will arrive, the results will arrive on God's timetable. And it just is, right? Like it's that real Neville Goddard, if you recall 2 modules ago, that real Neville Goddard energy. I can't tell you which one it is. When it comes to more precise astrological elections, there is definitely like a magical improvement that comes from being that precise. But the folk stuff, maybe. It certainly teaches you more of the realities of sacred time. And that alone is worth playing with. Similar to, as we looked at earlier in the course, people don't like saying this, but unfortunately LLMs are getting reliable enough for it. You do need to know them yourself. But you can ask LLMs, if you give them your direction, your location, you will get pretty good planetary hour timings for where you are. There are also apps and so on you can use for it. But this is one of the things that they're finally good for. Anything that's precise and in the background. And just play with it. Play. The universe runs on play. It runs on joy. Sacred time is the arrival of results. The way wizards arrive precisely when they mean to. Which teaches you there is a rhythm and an intelligence to what's going on. And that, coming back to, is absolutely worth a squeeze. And Sigil Magic can get you there because it's a high volume practice. So you get more reps in, so you get closer to that feeling that you can certainly get from other mystic or magical paths. Which starts to like make the cosmos taste better. And that brings me to gratitude, which is my favorite of the force multipliers or optimizers. And I have a whole video about this, I'll link it up below as well. Legendary shaman Martin Prechtel, when he was training with the Tutuhil Maya in Lake Atitlan in Guatemala in like the late 70s, learned about, obviously because he initiated and trained as a shaman, how offerings and gratitude work in a Tutuhil context. And when you want something, so you're gonna, I need a new job, we're doing that again. I found the right spirit or God or what have you. We in the West have a forward transactional view of these things, which is like, I want this job, I have this like rum and offerings and candy and whatever, or pound cake. You take this, I get the job. What he learned from the Tutuhil Maya, Martin Prechtel, is that gratitude and offerings are for that which you have already received. So you pull the energy from behind you forward. You don't make an offering for a job or for money in the future. You move that offering to the gratitude for the career you have already had or for the abundance you have already experienced. And this is a really primal energetic thing that I think is about minimum 70,000 years old, because we find a similar idea in much of Aboriginal Australia, where the dreaming was originally called something like the turnaround. And what that means is that you are moving energy into the spirit world effectively, and it coming back up to power the cosmos. In the Andes, there's a serpent energy, Amaru, which does the same thing from essentially the top of the Andes into the ocean and back. And it's this cycle of energy. And if it's not fed with offerings, it will eat anyway. And that's the kind of the other side of not providing offerings in gratitude for that which you've already received is Pachamama always has to eat. So she's either going to eat the offerings or it shows up as misfortune. And it's not misfortune because she's angry. It's not that kind of cosmos. She has to eat, right? So feed her. She feeds you, feed her, right? Gratitude is, and you can do this with your offerings and your spirits and whatever. That's a whole separate course. But you can just shift into that mood of when you are calling in spirits and enchanting, you can move into the gratitude for that which you've already received. And that kickstarts almost like this cycle of energy that is supporting you as you move forward. Now, why I did a whole separate video about this, which you can find linked up below, is your ability, at least initially, to experience and step into gratitude is heavily colored by your childhood. If you happen to have had a childhood where you had a lot of hand-me-downs, maybe you weren't particularly wealthy, or sometimes parents get obsessed with thrift, right? Maybe you had a lot of hand-me-downs, or maybe you had that really classic, there are children in Africa who are starving, who would love to eat that broccoli. So you're going to sit at the table and eat that broccoli. You cannot get up until. What that does for a child is scramble desire and personhood and builds levels of resentment. You associate gratitude with being forced to do things you don't like. Yeah? So the video takes you through, if that was your childhood, when I tell you you should be grateful, do you hear it like that? Do you hear it like eat your broccoli? And if so, there's some internal work and some inner child work that you are called to do, seeing only opportunities, that releases that child from like, hey, guess what? We're a grown-ass adult now. My mother does this because she was forced to eat peas, which I love because I didn't grow up eating peas because once she became a parent, guess what she didn't serve, right? Hated peas. My grandmother wasn't the best cook. So there's a bunch of stuff that is from that English line like cottage pie and with peas and so on that my grandmother cooked, that my mother never cooked. And I get it. It was her turn, right? You want to be doing something like that with your inner child when you hear, and I don't want to say like you should be grateful, that is creepy. But how did you feel when I said gratitude is a force multiplier and I consider it to be essential for magic? Did you hit, okay. Or did it actually light you up? Because I enjoy it. I actually enjoy stepping into, we've had a very cold summer, December, right? It's summer down here. And I woke up this morning and it was cold and wet and the sun's come out and you can just step into how wonderful it is to have had this much sunlight and to be grateful for taita inti, for the sun shining down and the days that you've spent underneath it, so that when it does open up again, the energy connects. So gratitude is a force multiplier for magic, and it's something kind of like failure and sacred time that as you do sigil magic or whatever, you have to tangle with, because it's, oh wow, it's the beautiful side of a loving co-creative cosmos. The beautiful side of like, oh, I can get what I want. What an amazing opportunity to be in a body for this, 80 plus years or however long you get. What an amazing opportunity. And to bring your attention to that makes the whole thing work better. And so I want to conclude the course with a revised definition of magic. I have a few of them. the felt sense that the universe is co-creative. But here, at the end of Module 5 and the end of the course, I want to give you one that's a little bit more specific around gratitude and sacred time and so on. And I've been playing with this one, so let me know what you think. Magic is a collection of operationalized practices for maximizing co-creation. There's a few $5 words in there, right? But one of the conclusions that we don't get what we want, we get what we deserve, we think we deserve. One of the conclusions you reach doing sigil magic is that you and everyone else is at least co-creating their realities. And this almost comes back to like, okay, cool, then why would I need magic? And it's like, well, because I think these are operationalized techniques for maximizing the reality that you are always co-creating. And a high volume practice like sigil magic gets you to that realization, almost like it puts that realization deep in your bones faster, because you have more opportunities to fail, more experiences of sacred time, more invitations to gratitude. So that it's such a powerful beginner exercise. I mean, advanced people can use it too, but it's such a powerful beginner exercise because it will put the reality of magic in your body, in your bones, so that it never goes away. And so I'm leaving you with that conclusion that it's a collection of operationalized techniques for maximizing co-creation. Probably you're not going to see that on like a cap in an Etsy or Instagram store. It's a bit wordy, but you've earned it. By this point in the course, you have earned, oh yeah, magic is a collection of, magic is operationalizing the reality that I'm always co-creating. And over the tens of millennia that humans have been doing magic, there are some skills and techniques that we have learned that can like boost that natural co-creative capacity. That's what I think, at least from a practical enchantment perspective, magic is. Oh yeah, I guess I would just like to say, if you would like to take these skills further, come and join the Weird Kids in the premium membership. If you've developed a taste for this kind of magic and you think you've got the skills for it, there's all manner of courses in there where you can learn additional stuff, angel magic, grimoire magic, energy healing, and so on. But you also get to join a community of weirdo practitioners where so much of the value lies in sharing and asking and relying on the wisdom of like a really profound and beautiful intelligence network. So that's it. You've come to the end of the course. Thank you very, very much. And I would love it if you could share this with someone else you think would be, may benefit from a little bit of sigil magic in their life.